At the ripe age of 18, Evelyn found herself in a romantic entanglement with a chap 3 years her senior. This young man, Mason, hailed from humble origins, toiled diligently, pursued education, and alas, couldn't stretch his budget to accommodate Evelyn's every fancy. This predicament sparked a resolution in her young heart. She yearned for a partner with a prosperous and reliable income, one who would admonish her for acquiring yet another lipstick. And lo and behold, that's when Leo appeared on the scene, a seasoned soul of 43 who had triumphed over a decade of divorce. Leo boasted his very own enterprise, a commendable cash flow, and, of course, the means to pamper his cherished wife. Evelyn has always been upfront about the significant role finances play in her relationship with her husband. At the tender age of 19, she eagerly tied the knot with Leo, in spite of her mother's stark disapproval. "How can there be such a vast age gap? Have you lost your mind, Evelyn?" her mother exclaimed over the phone when she learned of her daughter's impending nuptials. Following her outburst, she disconnected the call with a stern warning for Evelyn not to come crawling back to her once her benefactor abandoned her. On the day of the ceremony, her mother was noticeably absent, and her husband didn't press the issue of starting a family. He recognized that Evelyn was still very much in her youth, in need of guidance and life lessons. And she, for her part, didn't broach the subject of having kids either. Children simply weren't in her immediate agenda. This year marked Leo and Evelyn's 5th anniversary, a milestone they joyously celebrated as they recounted their journey in marital bliss. On this special occasion, Leo presented his beloved wife with a state-of-the-art mobile device and a stunning ring, while Evelyn, in her unwavering devotion, gifted him with her heart and soul. Evelyn, a captivating young woman, garnered admiration from men wherever she went. They would approach her, vying for her attention, even in the absence of her husband. Each passing day made her increasingly aware of Leo's age, slowly catching up to him. No longer the dashing and fit man she had lovingly married, nearing the age of 50 appeared to take a toll on his appearance. The contrast between them started to grate on her nerves, leaving her mildly. She couldn't help but feel that her husband paled in comparison when standing beside her radiant beauty. One evening, they were lounging with pals at a restaurant, and Evelyn casually remarked about Leo's looks. "You should have stuck with Mason. You'd be glowing with youth now," a friend teased her. "What's he got to offer that I want?" Evelyn chuckled, dismissing the idea. "You haven't heard?" Her friend gaped in amazement. Evelyn's eyes widened in curiosity. What had she missed about her ex? The friend filled her in. Mason was now heading a big company, drove a flashy car, and was still flying solo. A spark ignited in Evelyn's eyes, and she made up her mind to somehow coax her former beau into rekindling old flames. She spent countless hours trying to ease Mason back to comfort. Initially, he resisted her sweet talk and pleas, but nostalgia had its way. Even though their split had been tough, Mason occasionally found his thoughts drifting back to Evelyn. After much cajoling, he finally agreed to meet up with his old flame. Oh, and clever Evelyn was already scheming. She had devised a way to charm both men at once and squeeze some money out of each. Later, she thought she might pick just one, because pulling the wool over their eyes indefinitely would be a tall order. When Evelyn caught sight of Mason after such a long time, she was taken aback. Before her stood a muscular young man, brimming with vitality and robustness. A delightful warmth spread through her stomach, and she flashed a mischievous smile. Throughout the evening, the woman had been captivating her former beau, attempting to seduce him, but Mason proved to be a tough nut to crack, and she couldn't sway him easily. It took her multiple dates to finally entice him into an intimate encounter. Evelyn once again found herself struck by the contrast between the youthful Mason and the no longer youthful Leo. The disparity was staggering. It appeared that if she had to make a choice between the two, she already knew whom she would favor. Their rendezvous with their paramour grew increasingly frequent, even to the extent of spending extended periods at his apartment. With artful cunning, Leo's wife concocted a tale about seeking solace with a countryside confidant, bolstering her fabrication through the medium of video link. Leo, astute to the dubious nature of the situation, remained unperturbed. The fervent love that had impelled him to wed a tender-hearted maiden had long since withered away. Moreover, he recognized that the astute legal minds who had crafted the prenuptial agreement, one which Evelyn inscribed her name on sans comprehension, would ensure his losses in the imminent divorce were minimal. At his whim, Leo could have extricated himself from the arrangement, yet his youthful spouse endowed him with a certain gravitas. He reveled in witnessing the envy evoked upon the countenances of his business associates and newfound acquaintances. This sensation of esteem engendered a sense of satisfaction, one he was loath to forfeit. After half a year of covert rendezvous, indulging in passion within the confines of her car, and deceiving her spouse, Evelyn began to grow weary. This weariness was particularly amplified as Mason began to insist that she abandon Leo for him. Initially, it was a simple proposition, but Mason progressively exerted more pressure, going so far as to threaten to divulge their affair to her husband, potentially prompting his own departure from Evelyn's life. On the day when her clandestine lover spilled the beans, Evelyn was infuriated with him, leading to their breakup. Determined, she vowed to never lay eyes on him again. However, not even 3 weeks later, she found herself dialing Mason's number once more. When he answered the phone and heard her voice, he felt as delighted as a cat that had just licked up some cream. He took it as a positive sign, the first hint that Evelyn might be on her way to leaving her. Just a day after their 3-day interlude apart, Evelyn made her way home. There she found her sprawled out on the couch, engrossed in a soap opera, a bulging envelope lying beside him. "Hey there," she grinned. "What do you have for me?" "A little surprise," he replied, a mischievous glint in his eye. Evelyn assumed it must be a gift intended for her, so she eagerly opened the envelope. To her shock, it was filled with a whole bundle of photographs. As she flipped through them, a wave of dizziness washed over her. "And what about that?" she murmured. "Well, a little birdie told me all about you," Leo said, his eyes filled with unmistakable curiosity. He couldn't help but wonder how his wife would react. In this moment, he pecked at tears, pleas for forgiveness, and desperate requests to not be cast aside like trash. True to his expectations, Evelyn put on a poor performance, attempting to cry convincingly and apologize with utmost sincerity. However, Leo couldn't resist making a mockery of her. "Need a hand with packing up? You can take everything, even the fancy jewelry," he said, a sly grin on his face. "What do you mean? You're okay with it?" The wife was shocked. Leo reminded her of the prenuptial agreement and informed her that Evelyn would not be entitled to his assets, business, or investments. Evelyn was so shocked that she was rendered speechless, her mouth agape like a fish out of water. She wrote to Mason, sharing that her husband had cast her aside. Mason assured her that he would arrive soon and take her as his lover. She waited for hours, but Mason never showed up. Eventually, he called her and burst into laughter on the other end, mocking her as a materialistic fool. It turned out he never intended to live with her, and if she succumbed to his pleading, he would slam the door in her face. "Someone like you doesn't deserve to be treated well," he sneered before abruptly hanging up. Evelyn wept even more profusely. She found herself utterly lost. Returning to her mother was out of the question, and she had no refuge of her own. After leaving Leo's home, she flitted between a friend's place and then another. Evelyn was unable to work, so she rushed to find someone who could fill the void left by her former partner. Sadly, none of the men she encountered treated her with the same kindness Leo had. Most were on the lookout for a casual fling and treated her as such. There were moments when, alone in her rented apartment, Evelyn felt an overwhelming urge to cry out in despair. As she reached for the sky, metaphorically grasping at hope, she let the small bird slip from her grasp. Cheating Secrets podcasts like me